The Give and Go Show is back in your life. My name is Griffin Queen, as always, joined by Matt Modi and Matt Ferentinos. I say as always, but I did miss last week's episode, so it's a little unfair for me to say that. Guys, good to be back. How was last week without me and Elliot?
Went really smooth. Was less than an hour. We stayed on topic. It went really, really well. Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, thought it was a great time. Hashtag thanks, Matt. We should do it again.
Hashtag thanks, Matt. In fact, yeah. I did listen to the episode while I was on my flight. I had a good time doing that. I was going to text this to you guys, but I figured I would wait until we were actually on the pod. I hate to say this. I feel not great saying this. Two-man pod's pretty good. You know, it's pretty smooth. We're not talking over each other. Everyone knows who a question is being directed to all the time. I don't have to be like, hey, Modi, hey, Ferentinos. You guys were just like having a great conversation, and I really appreciated it. It was a nice way to get through my flight.
Yeah, that's good. Speaking of listening to old episodes, I had a backlog because I always like to re-listen just to kind of see what we sound like. And I was listening to the episode when I didn't have a voice, and I like blocked this part of my life just from memory because it was during the Phillies playoff run, and you're talking about like could be celebrating a Phillies World Series in a week, and they were like up 2-0 at this point, and I was listening to it, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible.
That's a tough re-listen. Yeah, I imagine that in hindsight. At the time, you were probably like, Griffin, shut the fuck up. And listening back to it, you were probably like, Griffin, shut the fuck up.
Please stop talking. Yeah, so that was tough, but whatever, we get through it.
It's kind of like going through the paths, listening to our old Spotify
Wow.
episodes.
Wow, what a nice little reference. Yeah, so today, before we get going, like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure you rate and review. But before we get going today, the things that we're going to talk about, Attack on Titan, a decade later, the anime is finally completed, started in April of 2013, ended, 2 weeks ago? Something like that in November 2023. So a full decade later, it's finally over. We're also going to talk about some really, really good teams in the NBA and some really, really bad teams in the NBA and the streaks that they're on going into tonight's episode, some of which are pretty surprising. But first, you know, we do talk about a lot of nerdy shit on this podcast. Basketball in and of itself is kind of nerdy. But let's get back to the anime talk. We haven't done it in a little while. Attack on Titan finally wrapped up. Ferentinos, you and I, we were manga readers. So we finished the story, 2.5 years ago, I think it was, early 2021, if I remember correctly. But we've been waiting this whole time for the anime to complete it. Modi, obviously, you were an anime only, so we'll get to you in a moment. But Ferentinos, I want to hear your thoughts. What did you think about the finale? What did you think about the final season, final, extension final, epilogue final? How did it all make you feel?
Part three, shabam. I don't know how they finished it, but no, it was I thought it was great. There was a lot of talk of Mappa doing an anime only ending.
There was a lot of copium. Let's call it what it was. There's a lot of cope.
Yeah. I thought it was really well executed. I thought they made Aaron's motivations clear. And I mean, just besides like the plot aspect to it, I thought it was just beautiful watching. I could not wait for the scenes to get animated when they're all fighting the past iterations of the Titans. Like that was sick. Zeke and Armin having their talk in the past, and then just Zeke coming out of it like, come here, Levi, come get me. And then like that scene was done so well. And I just loved it. Yeah. I mean, like, I love being a manga reader because then seeing when the anime comes out, you just like picture the panels in your head, but also like to see the stuff from the pages come to life. You're like, I didn't imagine that fight scene being that cool. And they pulled it off and like did things that I didn't even think about, but really well done. Highly recommend it. Thought it was a really satisfying conclusion. It did like a really good metric in like the Japanese audience. I forgot like what it was, but I think it did really well there. They said like 3.2 and people were like, you mean 3.2 out of 10? And it's like, no, it's like 1,000 ratings per something, but thought it was really great. Yeah, Modi, what are your thoughts as an anime only fan?
I thought it was awesome. I was expecting to be mad at the ending just based on what you guys had said, that it was like very divisive, that people didn't like it. So I was expecting the ending to be like a little more like out, like out of worldly type thing, like the Naruto ending. I didn't love Full Metal. I did like the ending. I thought it got a little too out of this world with spoilers, but I guess I won't spoil it, but Griffin knows what I'm talking about. Like got like a little too out of this world. So I was expecting that with Attack on Titans. I feel like sometimes anime, they just can't help themselves, but that was not the case with Attack on Titan. I thought it was awesome. I didn't have any questions that I was like, well, this went unanswered. I thought that I could have done without Mikasa kissing the headless corpse of Eren. I thought that probably was a little. I could have done without that part specifically.
Iconic scene. Everybody loves a little necrophilia in their life.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they.
What do you think of the mist? Seeing everyone, the whole scout team in the mist.
That was cool. The
scene with Sasha.
The scene with Hanji when like she died and like met up with Erwin, they're like, yeah, not like I forget the exact quote, but basically we're watching them now.
Did they, Ferentinos, did they add that for the anime? I don't remember her meeting up with them like that in the manga. Like I remember her having like a scene where she sees them, like she sees all of her companions, but I don't remember her like actively like meeting up with all of them and like basically passing the torch to the next generation. And you might not remember, it's been so long, but I feel like they extended that scene a little bit for Hanji. I
think they might have included it because it was big for her character, but also like that's kind of the scout thing, like as you lead the scouts. And I feel like everyone kind of has that moment where they're just like, can't wait to see everyone, like, and we can finally like look back on and see that what our efforts did led to like, because their whole thing was just like trying to find peace and discovery for mankind and protecting everybody. And it's like, this is what we dedicated our hearts for. Like it was this cause.
So do we think
Connie and I was like, oh no, you're good.
I was going to say Connie and John reacted as if they saw like at the same time. Do we think they actually saw their former companions like in some sort of variation of paths? Or is it just like an artistic choice?
I think Eren would have done that. Yeah.
To me, like
instead of just being out.
Previously, I had always felt like it was just an artistic choice, like when they showed it in the manga. But because of Connie and John actually reacting to it, like having a visible reaction to seeing people in front of them, to me, it did feel like it was like a final message from Paths. Now that they're going to be cut off from it. Like this was it. They're not ever going to go to Paths again.
Yeah. And I thought it was cool how they ended it with basically Eren being like, with Armin saying this wasn't like you had other options, and Eren being like, yeah, well, basically like I shouldn't, like I'm an idiot. I shouldn't have had this power. Like this is what I thought was right, and this is like I thought that was cool. How I think a lot of times the main character can get like omnipotent, where they know everything and feel like they know best, and Eren being like, yeah, like maybe I'm an idiot. I don't know. Like I thought that was cool.
It is genuinely one of my favorite endings, which I know is a hot take because of that specific thing. And I know that's part of the reason why so many people hate it, because I don't know if you guys ever watched Code Geass with Lelouch. Basically, it's a Lelouch ending, but Lelouch is the mastermind the entire time, and he understands everything he's doing from beginning to end. Right. We did talk about how you guys had watched it. That was my mistake. And everyone thought that that's what Eren was, particularly in season 4 when he's fucking shredded out and he's got the cool long hair and he's throwing the trench coat over his shoulders and he's basically just acting like an absolute Chad. And then so many people's hearts were broken when it turned out that really the dude had lost his mind the moment he made contact with Historia during the medal ceremony. And everything he's been doing since then has basically been like one long clusterfuck of just trauma. And now he's just sad that he's not going to be able to, like, he dies at like 19. Like it's just it's just a sad story. And people were so upset in the manga community that Eren didn't have a plan this whole time. And I'm like, this is genius. Yeah. Because you so heavily believe because of previous anime that he has this plan and he does it. He's just fucking doing shit.
So one question. So my interpretation was like basically when he touched Historia at the medal ceremony, whatever, he saw the future essentially, right? Like he saw what was going to happen.
And the past and everything. Like that's why the Attack on Titan too. It's like you can literally, it's a freaking loop. Like no wonder he lost his mind.
Have you guys watched Watchmen?
Yeah.
You mean
The HBO
yeah,
version of Watchmen,
Yeah.
or the
I think it's the same story. It kind of reminded me of Dr. Manhattan, who basically he doesn't see time linear. He just like goes to. Is it kind of like that? That was kind of my interpretation.
Time is in the Attack on Titan universe, at least as it relates to Eren, time is deterministic. What is going to happen has to happen because it's going to happen, and you loop back to the beginning, and you don't act like free will is an illusion, because and that's Dr. Manhattan's whole thing, is that he can see the strings even if he wants to do something differently.
He can't.
Him wanting to do that is part of what happens. Like there's no way to change it if you're in a deterministic time loop, which is part of what makes Eren's journey so depressing. The guy that's obsessed with freedom is, by virtue of his powers and by virtue of pursuing freedom, the least free person out of all of them, because he's the only one who understands that he's not free. It's so sad. It's like, it's such a tragedy, and it's so fucking incredible. And I'm really excited to see what Isayama does next, because like he started writing this as like a really young man. Like he's in, I think he's only a few years older than us. I think he's in like his late 30s. Like he's been at this for a while. I want to see what he writes next, if he writes something next, because I imagine he's going to learn a lot of lessons from this. And this is already like, and I'll ask both of you as well. This is one of my favorite stories ever. Like I think it is potentially the best anime ever, up there with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and Cowboy Bebop, and depending on how you feel about it, Evangelion, and a couple other things. Like this is the peak of the genre.
Yeah, I mean, you guys would know the answer to that better than me. But I was half kidding or half serious when I was like, when you finish something, like finishing Attack on Titan is like, this is going to be the best anime I'll probably ever watch for the rest of my life. And I was like, how am I supposed to find another anime having just finished Attack on Titan? I feel like in general, whenever you finish a show for the first time, you have this like post-show depression where you're like, well, that was awesome. How am I supposed to follow that up? Normally you can, but in anime specific, it's like this might be the peak.
I mean, as far as just a story, I loved it so much. I feel like you could find in like different shonens like similar things and like influences from other animes. Like I love Jujutsu Kaisen because it's a lot like Hunter x Hunter, in the same way that like one author was very influenced by the other. The power scaling and fighting is the same, but as far as just like world expanding and then trying to figure out what's going on, like it was like Game of Thrones level writing. I like put it up with there because I feel like it followed a similar timeline. If Game of Thrones actually decided to finish and have a satisfying conclusion, it might have ended around this time too. But I'd like think of those as parallels, as far as like if you want like a amazing drama, really well written, like you get invested in all the characters, like Attack on Titan is that show.
Yeah, and I mean, like, as good as a show like Jujutsu Kaisen can be, it takes so many inspirations, like you mentioned, from previous stuff, like Yu Yu Hakusho, like Dragon Ball Z, like all the different like tournament and battle shonen. Attack on Titan takes a lot of its inspiration, and this is like a sad thing to say, from like the Holocaust and from concentration camps throughout previous eras of history, and just from like the 1800s into 1900s, and like mechanization and all that stuff. Like it's not taking a ton specifically from other anime. It's taking a lot from world events. It's similar to Godzilla in that respect. Like another really, really major Japanese work. Godzilla is the Japanese contending with the atom bomb and with nuclear power. Like that's what it's about at its core. And so it influences a lot of other things, but it doesn't have a ton of influences from non-real life stuff. Attack on Titan, it's like I honestly, like, and Elliot said this in the chat, he said it's why he doesn't recommend it to people as a first show. I feel like it can go either way. I know he's responding to Modai saying like, what do I watch now after I finish this? If it ends up being somebody's favorite show, it could be their introduction into anime, but it could also make all anime not as good for them going forward. So I totally understand that. We could totally have, an entire Attack on Titan episode at some point. We've been on this one for 15 minutes. Before we move on to actual basketball, Ferentinos, I want to get your thoughts on this. I want to get your ranking, or your rating, I guess, out of 10 on the series as a whole, and then on the finale, and then Modai, I want the same from you.
Oh man, I mean, I feel like the series as a whole, like 9.8, and then finale was like 9.5. Like, I don't know,
Wow, 9.5. That's higher than I thought it would be for you, man. I love that.
just because I feel like still like the moments, like the best moments of the show for me were when like they started to discover everything, even like the beginning of season 3, also the beginning of season 4. I don't know, like those turning points in the show were just like those moments where it's like, oh my, like the first Levi versus Zeke fight scene where he fights the Beast Titan. That's what I think of
Absurd.
as like, this
Just
is
like
freaking
all
peak,
time
like,
cool moves. Yeah.
yeah. But the finale, the way that they ended it, and it's so hard, I feel like, to make good finales because no one wants the story to end. Like, I feel like people are just going to be pissed with the fact that the show or story that they're so invested in is going to have a conclusion. So people are going to be down on it. But I thought that they did a really good job. Yeah, loved it.
Yeah. I don't know if anything's ever a 10 out of 10. This would probably be as close that I felt to something being a 10 out of 10 in terms of the show itself and then also the conclusion. Because I like how they had, it's reminded me not in terms of the ending, but just the beginning in terms of Lost, where they sprinkle in little like things like in Lost, it's like that there are other people on the island. And then in Attack on Titan, it's that Titans are actually human with Connie's mom and that there are other humans with Annie. And so they just like slowly sprinkle and then hinting at the larger universe. And in the ending, yeah, I mean, I love the fact that, like I said, it didn't get out of this world. It didn't get like too hard to conceptualize. It was actually pretty easy. It was like this, I guess, 19-year-old kid didn't really know what he was doing and thought this was what he had to do, which I thought was cool. And I like how I like how they explained every question that you had. I hate shows that are just like, they hype up so much about something that's a mystery and then they don't know how to end it. And then they just decide not to. That's like basically what Lost was.
The J.J. Abrams way of doing things. You put a lot of mystery boxes out there, and you hope that people either stop caring or figure it out on their own through fan theories.
Elliot, more than happy to hop on for a second.
Elliot, let's definitely get you in here. Hold on one sec.
Yes, sir.
All right, Elliot's going to join us for a moment because I had asked him to join and he said no, but now here he is.
Well, I just wanted to. There was like a series of episodes in like the second half of episode 3 where
season 3,
yeah, where I was like heavily like I was like watching it. I was avoiding the manga, and like I would go on Reddit like after each episode came out, and like there were like 4 or 5 episodes in a row where I was like, this is a 10 out of 10 episode. And then I'd go online. All the manga readers were like, wait till next episode.
I think I know which episodes you're talking about. And if you go on like IMDb or whatever, there's like 3 or 4 episodes that are in the top 10 episodes of all time. And they're probably the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, it's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Including like with like Perfect Game and the ones before and after with yeah.
But I mean, just like I was like, this is a 10 out of 10. This is the best episode ever. And then they're like, nope, next episode is even better. And it like it just kept. It was like, okay, never mind. It was like a 9.99. It was like, all right, this was a 9.999. Like they did in fact just keep getting better and better and better.
What just curious, what series, like what was the content of those episodes? I'm trying to remember because I don't watching it like not having watched it live.
I mean, it includes where they fight the Beast Titan.
Ervin's final charge.
Yeah.
And him treating everything like a baseball game.
Go
that's
kill
perfect
ourselves.
Game. Yep.
And then where they go into the basement and then it reveals the outside world.
Yeah, that's
okay.
insane.
Yeah. I mean,
those
the whole
such good episodes.
Those episodes, sorry, Modai, those episodes broke me. Like when they reveal the outside world and the immediate preceding episode, or maybe 2 before, where it's what everyone calls it Serum Bowl, where it's the decision between whether to save Armin's life or save Ervin's life.
Right.
I think that is genuinely the best episode of TV I've ever seen.
Yeah,
20 minutes of just there's no matter what, I'm going to be depressed at the end of this.
It's rocking a 9.8 out of 10 with 120,000 votes on IMDb, compared to most episodes of Attack on Titan, which have 20,000 votes.
Is that specific episode?
Yeah, like
it's incredible.
Specifically made IMDb accounts just to rate that episode a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, this just makes me want to expand on my athlete anime podcast, but we'll have to work.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. If anyone who's watching or listening knows any professional or collegiate, I'll take collegiate. I think Mona, you'd probably take collegiate as well.
Could be a former
athlete's good too. You know, If you want to do an anime and sports podcast, like, we're your guys.
Yeah, hit us up.
Hit us up, please. This is all we care about.
But all right, we can move on. Unless anybody has some last second Attack on Titan thoughts.
I'll just Elliot dropped before he gave his rating, so I'll read it out real quick. He said finale was a solid 8.9. Show is a 9.6. I like that you guys gave decimal answers. I was expecting just 1 through 10, but decimal answers is good too. I will stick with that. I think I'm on the same page. I think I actually have the exact same score as Ferentino's. 9.8 for the show as a whole, 9.5 for the finale. I really, really liked the manga finale. The anime version of it was significantly better and improved on everything that I thought needed improvements. And I'm just so sad that it's done, because this has legitimately been a decade of my life, from my early college, like my beginning of my 20s, into I'm now getting married this coming year. Like, it's been my entire like formative adult experience. So we won't get into that. I won't start crying on this pod. Let's talk about some basketball. Modai, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can introduce this one, and we'll get going.
Yeah, so basically, to set the stage here a little bit, I thought it was interesting. This was heading into yesterday, so not all these streaks are currently active, but there were 8 teams that were either on a 5-game winning or 5-game losing streak. And I think it was exactly split 4-4, which is kind of crazy. Some of those have been broken, like the Sixers lost last night. They had won, I think, 8 straight heading into last night. The Pelicans won. They had lost 5 straight. We actually will be talking about the Pelicans. Of those 8, 4 of which I think we should do a deep dive in. The Sixers we've talked about a bunch. The Spurs have lost 6 straight, but like, who cares? They're not supposed to be good. The Heat have won 6 straight. They literally went to the finals. They're supposed to be good. And the Pistons maybe are worth a further conversation next week. Have lost 9 straight, but again, they're not supposed to be good. So I kind of figured it'd be fun to dive into 2 teams that are on winning streaks that weren't supposed to be good. One of them, the Rockets, who were very much not supposed to be good, are currently on a 6-5-game winning streak at this point. And then the Wolves,
6-game streak. They lost their first 3, and they've rattled off 6 straight since then.
And then the Wolves, who were supposed to be good, but they weren't supposed to be as good as they are, depending on who you ask. Some of us did think they were, and I will get to that. And then the Pelicans. 5-6 record isn't terrible. 5-game losing streak is bad. Zion is weird stuff's going on there. And I'm talking about the basketball court, not anything regarding Mariah Mills. And then the Clippers, in the most delicious fashion, have not won a game since James Harden has joined the team. It is better material than I will find on any internet not safe for work site, is what's going on with the Clippers.
So I just can't imagine that's true, man. Mariah Mills is on those sites too.
But I do want to start with the Timberwolves. And someone on this show took a victory lap after 1 week of basketball when the Timberwolves were sitting at 1-2, claiming they were correct that the Timberwolves were not going to be good. Since then, they have yet to lose, with wins over the Heat, over the Nuggets, over the Celtics. They have won 7 straight. Griffin, I will give you the floor, and I'll give you your flowers for not immediately telling me to shut up after taking a 1 week victory lap. So the floor is yours.
Look, we could say that you took a 1 week victory lap, or we could say that you took, at this point, about a 20-year victory lap. True. Because it's not like the Wolves have been good a lot in our lifetimes. So I absolutely understand why you took the victory lap. I also understand you're not the biggest Rudy Gobert guy in the world, and I know that. So watching that team be not so great at the start of the season was pretty fun for you. They're 8-2. They have the best. They're not necessarily the best record in the West, because the Nuggets are 9-2, but they have the same number of losses. They've got the best defensive rating in the league and a not so great offense, if I'm being honest. Their defense is so much better than everybody else that it's keeping them in it, despite the fact that they have a relatively mediocre offense. They're 17th in points per game and 23rd in offensive rating, but they're a full 5 points better than the next best team, which is the Celtics, in defensive rating, which is fucking incredible. I know we're only 10 games into the season, but like 10 games is... It's not 4 games. We are an eighth of the season through. Yeah, we have sample size to go off of by virtue of playing the Heat, Nuggets, and the Celtics. Like, they've played good teams. And even their losses, the Raptors and Hawks, those are good losses. Ant and Cat are both averaging over 20 points per game. I think Ant is at like 26.5, so he's actually closer to 30. Gobert's averaging 12 and 13 with 2 blocks. Between him, Bam Adebayo, and Anthony Davis, I think those are probably the 3 best defenders in the league right now. They've got a hard schedule coming up. They've got a hard game tonight. They're playing the Suns tonight. It might be less hard of a game than I thought it was going to be because I saw that Devin Booker is on a minutes restriction and Bradley Beal might actually be out tonight.
He is confirmed out, which is ridiculous.
He is confirmed out tonight. Okay, so everyone was saying this was going to be the first game that all 3 of these guys played in, and it's a back-to-back for the Wolves. But now I'm leaning Wolves again. I'm hoping for 9-2 tonight.
Yeah, so to interrupt you real quick, this morning Shams tweeted out that Beal and Booker were both going to play tonight and that it would be the first game. And then like minutes before we hopped on, there had been no chatter in between, but minutes before we hopped on, he said that Beal was not going to play due to a back injury. So I mean,
get used to that, Suns fans. Get used to that.
Yeah, we're not talking about them, but all of us were like smashing the Suns under, and this is exactly why.
Yep. There's no consistency with the health. They're a super talented team that just cannot take the court, and we've seen it before. We're like you said, we're not talking about the Suns, but I'm not going to take a victory lap on the Wolves just yet. Again, it is only 10 games. There's a lot of hard games still coming up. If one of their big 3 goes down with an injury, much like last year where Cat only played 29 games, this could be a very different looking team. But I feel really good about the Wolves. I feel like maybe we were just a little bit too early on last year's prediction. And this year could be their year. I'm hoping for a deep, deep run for them. And I really like watching them play. They are gritty. They are nasty. They are fun to watch in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, Ferentinos, I know we haven't said anything yet. Any Timberwolves thoughts?
No, just that Anthony Edwards is a beast. It's the defensive intensity when you can tell it goes to their best scorer is fantastic. Like when he strapped up Jason Tatum at the end of that Boston game, like he shut down probably top 5 overall scorer in the NBA when you put all of his intangibles together. And just watching him dunk, hit the big shots. I just want to see more of that identity going forward, where they lean on Edwards scoring a little bit more instead of like the clunky, try to figure out Cat random corner 3 into the offense. And, you know, with Gobert on the floor, it can be a little awkward, but no, they're fun to watch. I know Jared's pretty happy with the performance the T-Wolves are putting on right now, but I think they're going to be, I was just thinking about last week's episode. We talked about like real or not real. And I'm like, shit, the Rockets are 4th now. The Kings worked their way back up because De'Aaron Fox got back into things. And I'm glad about that because I was a little worried about the Kings at first. The Warriors literally haven't won a game since. So they've like taken a huge slide.
God is good.
Predict, but no, I mean, they're with the way that they're built, they're going to be competitive against every team. So even if they don't have the greatest night shooting offensively, they're really good at rebounding. So they're going to get those second chance points and they're going to make it tough for the teams on the other end that they play. So, and they match up well against the best teams in the West, which we're going to get into the Rockets, another team that is just matched up well with them primarily because of their big man, this Şengün guy. I think he's going to be my next Jakob Poeltl. I'm not going to know how to say his name.
You're already better at saying his name, and you're figuring out Jakob Poeltl. I mean, like there's so much growth from you. I think that was exactly how you say his name. I'm so proud of you. It's because we're wearing similar sweatshirts. You're just crushing it right now, Ferentinos. I'd love to see it.
I think I just blacked out for a second. I said his name right.
You had to go subconscious to get it done. You wanna move on to the Rockets, Smodai?
Yeah, we could do that. So the Rockets, they started 0-3. Everybody's ready to clown them, especially Dylan Brooks. Since then, they've won six straight. They beat the Kings twice. Granted, I think both of those games were without De'Aaron Fox, if I remember correctly. But they beat the Lakers and they beat the Nuggets.
The Nuggets last night, right?
I
don't know if it was last night or
2 nights ago.
I think it was 2 nights ago.
Yeah. Because the Nuggets won last night.
Yeah, it was the 12th on Sunday. But I remember watching Jokic hit some crazy threes to end, but they still outlasted him. That was fun. Yeah,
and even they beat the Pelicans in this streak, and they were down late in that game, and then they had 2 huge buckets at the end. I'm not going to pretend that I've grinded a ton of Rockets film. I just find it impressive that they're so different than what they were last year. Obviously, different coach, not quite as many young players, and the young players that stayed are I think we could just say much better at actually playing basketball than Kevin Porter Jr., who is not playing basketball. But last year they played super fast. This year they're playing super slow. And they've integrated Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks pretty well. They're pretty well rounded. I don't know. I'm impressed with the Rockets defensively. They're dogs, and they have some kind of a lesser version of the Timberwolves where defensively they're great and they have some individual scorers. So I don't know if they're necessarily going to keep it up to this extent, but I do think they'll probably be in the playoff picture for the rest of the year, I would say.
I mean, yeah, just the leadership with the shooting guards. I remember getting clowned on this podcast for selecting Dylan Brooks to lead my expansion team.
You selected James Harden before that. I just want to let the record show.
That's true.
I also don't feel like I clowned you for selecting Dylan Brooks. I'm a big Dylan Brooks guy. I'm like a renowned Dylan Brooks guy.
I was going to say, with James Harden on my squad, we're not winning a game.
Yeah, Griffin loves the guys that everybody else hates. The Rudy Goberts, the Dylan
I'm
Brookses.
a contrarian. Like Elliot. You know how Elliot talks to us in our group chat, and like he's a contrarian about everything. I'm a contrarian in real life. Like I will put myself out there and be super fucking wrong 9 times for the chance of being right 1 time.
I get it. I'm like that in some situations, but with guys like Dylan Brooks and Rudy Gobert to a lesser extent, I just thought he was, for basketball reasons, I didn't like him. Dylan Brooks I don't like because the guy's he's just a psychopath. But anyways,
worth noting, all 3 of us did take the Rockets to go over this season.
Yeah,
we were all believers in this Rockets team. To your point about Kevin Porter Jr., one of the best examples of addition by subtraction you'll find in the recent NBA. The team looks so much better without him hogging a lot of shots. They're a super balanced breakfast between Şengün, Brooks, Jalen Green playing really, really well, not trying to do too much, not trying to hog the ball. Fred VanVleet has been one of their better scorers and is just such a calming presence for the rest of the team because from the past 5 years of having to do it all the time, he's not afraid to try and bail them out with 3 seconds on the clock. I've been hard on Ime Udoka. I've always said, like, I say always for the past 2 years, I've said, are we sure this guy? Are we sure he's a good coach? Because like he took this Celtics squad that then basically got the same results the next year. Like, are we sure that Udoka is a good guy? He's taken this Rockets team that has not started this positively since James Harden left. They're 6-3. Is that a crazy start? Not necessarily. But is this going to end up being like a 500 basketball team when they were projected to win 31 games? I think so. And that's a huge fucking jump. It's a 10-game jump. And I'll give him his flowers. I think it's a lot of him. It's a lot of his willingness to give the ball to Şengün and just be like, all right, be Jokic light or be Sabonis light. And Şengün is stepping up to the plate. Like he's good everywhere. And I'm so excited to see it because like me and a couple Rockets guys that I'm friends with have been saying this. And last year with Steven Silas's coaching, they didn't go to Şengün at all. And it was just so exhausting to watch. This year, he's unlocked. I love seeing like a point forward, point center type guy who can actually successfully do that. And they've got a hard schedule coming up. I won't lie about that. There's a very real chance they could be under 500 in the next 5 games. But regardless, like this is just such a good start for a team that people were counting out from the jump.
Yeah, and I think the last point about the coaching job for Ime Udoka, they were such a clown show. The Rockets, like they didn't resemble real life basketball for the past 2 years with Steven Silas. So the fact that he's been able to, in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of basketball, get them to just be normal, I think is very impressive. So yeah, I agree with you about the coaching job. They needed someone like him who's a hard ass and a stickler and no nonsense after being run like, I don't know, Wolf of Wall Street for the past 2 years.
I mean, I could go down to Venice Beach and go to Muscle Beach basketball courts and watch teams of 5 guys that have a more cohesive style of play than what last year's Rockets team had. It was pickup ball. They didn't run any sets. Nobody was setting screens. Nobody they didn't run any plays. They would come out of timeouts and they just give the ball to Jalen Green or give the ball to Kevin Porter Jr. And it's like, okay, you're going to lose a lot of games. And they did. Like it just, these guys are potentially a year behind in their development, but they're catching up quick.
Şengün has a bag too. I was watching that Rockets Nuggets game, and he had some behind the back, like he has handles too.
He's got some fun passes. He's gonna hit some like elbow passes and shit that are gonna have you out of your seat. I love watching him play.
He's got a classy hero.
I love it. Yeah.
Brooks and Van Fleet are good. I was going to say they're good catch and shoot 3-point shooters. So like if he needs someone to get the ball to on the 3-point line, they're vets. They know exactly where to be. I think Dylan Brooks might be the best 3-point shooter, like percentage wise right now in the NBA, which is nuts. I think
he's shooting like 48% or something, right?
Something crazy. Yeah.
I mean, like again, nine games in, but the dude has been lights out thus far.
He got all his misses out in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. Well, and then he went to FIBA and he was a fucking beast.
Yeah. He's shooting 55% from 3.
That's fucking absurd.
Yeah. That's second in the NBA. Cason Wallace for OKC is first.
Oh, okay. All right. Of course, it'd be an OKC guy. There's so much talent on that team.
I mean, he's 11 for 20, so it's like small sample size. Whereas Brooks is 16 for 30, but still. Anyways.
Yeah.
Last thing, Amen Thompson is also a beast, and then Jeff Green is still making.
How about
plays.
His brother though? How about Amen's brother?
Asur Thompson's also incredible.
Yeah. Fucking really, really great pickup for your boy in fantasy basketball. He is a 5x5 threat every single night.
Poor Pistons, though. I mean.
But fun team to watch. Fun team to watch.
We're not going to talk about them, although we are moving over to the bad teams. Pistons, 2-9. But, I'm hearing about how bad the Wizards are every single day. No one's saying a word about the Pistons.
I think it's because of how the Wizards are bad. It's so chaotic. Whereas the Pistons, the Pistons are bad.
The Pistons are just bad.
But they're not Shaq and a fool like Jordan Poole. So it's not as catchy to talk about how bad they are.
They are not as much fun for Twitter. I think the Wizards might be like the #1 Twitter team this year because they're so stupid that you're just going to see lowlights all the time.
Yeah. It's like, it's JaVale McGee, but their whole roster.
Yeah, except he turned into a championship threat. So Jordan Poole coming back for another title in a couple of years. Who's to say?
Maybe.
You want to move on to the bad teams?
Yeah. So we got to save the Clippers for last, obviously. So we'll start with the Pelicans. So last night, as I mentioned, they snapped a 5-game losing streak. They blew out the Mavericks. They're currently 5-6. They're the 9 seed in the West. Granted, seeding is wonky this early in the season because everybody's grouped together by like 2 games. The concerning part is their net rating, 23rd in net rating, 26th on offense, and 18th on defense, which is terrible. McCollum's out for their foreseeable future with like a lung thing. I don't remember the exact diagnosis. I just know it seemed scary, and it's the second time that
he had a collapsed lung, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's the second time that's happened to him. And then the also concerning part is Zion. He is playing basketball, which is a step up for him, but he's averaging 21 points per game and he's yet to score more than 25. And then the comments is also what's not great. He was asked about his role and talked about how he's like needs to accept that he needs to take a step back and that he and I quote, needs to trust the process. So appreciate Zion Williamson for being a fan of the Give and Go show. And that was a clear shout out to me, which I appreciate.
Clear shout out to you.
Clear shout out. Yeah. He might as well said, Matt, this is a shout out. He also is a Naruto fan. So another clear shout out to being a listener.
Matt, are you trying to take Mariah Mills off my back? Matt Modai, Mariah Mills. There's a lot of alliteration there, boys.
Yeah, that is concerning. Let's move on.
Marshall Mathers.
Yeah,
top 3 M&Ms.
That is another person with 2 M's in their name. Yeah. Great job understanding alliteration, Ferentinos. I'm so proud of you. Şengün, Pirtle, and alliteration.
Last point I'll make, and then you guys can go. Pretty brutal next 5-game stretch. Nuggets, Timberwolves, and then back-to-back against the Kings. Well, I don't know if it's an actual back-to-back, but 2 games in a row against the Kings and then the Clippers. So could be a lot worse next time we talk for the Pelicans, but again, it's early. We'll have to see. But yeah, and what do you guys think on the Pelicans? Griffin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I am disappointed in this team so far. I'm disappointed in Zion. I thought we were going to get more out of him. I did take the over on this team. I was the only one of the 3 of us that did take the over because it seemed like they were saying all the right things in the offseason. It seemed like he had a renewed desire to get himself in shape. Obviously there was a lot of offseason stuff with him. That's personal life stuff. And honestly, I don't really hold him accountable for a lot of that because I've never had a porn star try and blackmail me on Twitter. I don't know what that's like. The offense being as bad as it is troubling because there's a lot of offensive threats on this team and there just doesn't seem to be a lot of cohesion between them. It doesn't seem like they're gelling correctly. We really haven't seen Ingram and Zion together a ton since they've been on this team together. And it's still kind of up in the air, like whose team it is. If Zion is going to continue to be the player that he is right now through these first 10 games, it's kind of Ingram's team. But as much as I love Brandon Ingram, like based on their actual talent levels, it shouldn't be. It should be Zion's team if we ever see peak Zion again. I don't know if we do. Like you mentioned about the upcoming schedule, I could very easily see them going 0-5 in this. I could also see them, playing up to the level of their opponents because they do have the offensive firepower that if they lock in, like they could go 3-2, they could go 4-1, and we could be having a very different conversation about them 2 weeks from now. But until I see something from them, they're a 500 team, and I was really expecting them to start off a little bit better because they didn't have a crazy hard schedule to start the season.
Yeah,
yeah. I would say with McCollum, they're missing shooting, which they sorely lack. I was watching the Pelicans-Rockets game to do a little research before this, and their half-court offense just looks so clunky. When you have Ingram, Zion, and Valanciunas on the floor, they're all trying to get mid-range or paint buckets. So it kind of like condenses everything. The defense knows where there's going, and there's no like outside shooting threat where you can kick it out to. So that's really kind of hurt their offense. And I think that's why it looks pretty clunky, and it's not really getting made up with good defense on the other end. So I think there's like 23, or their like net rating is 23rd right now in defense, which isn't that great. So if you're not scoring and you can't defend either, you're not really going to have a lot of success. I do think Zion looks great, though. I mean, his burst to the rim, just the way that he can bully people, like I think he actually does look healthy.
Physically,
but he's just not getting the. Yeah, he's just not getting the ball in his hands, which I think he needs to be a more high usage player if you really want to maximize it. Yeah, I mean, if you switch, I think like Zion and Draymond Green, that would be the perfect thing for the Warriors. Like if you have Zion as like a passing role, and he's a guy that can like play that shorter center that can bully people, because it's crazy watching him just body people in the paint. He looks like mini Shaq. But yeah, pretty confident that I took the under and feeling great about that. So
yeah, it's a
but also last thing I noticed, Cody Zeller has got to change up his look. He is so bald and he has the goggles, and he literally looks like an old man playing out there.
An unfortunate looking man. Like he's always been an unfortunate looking man, and I say that as an unfortunate looking man.
I'm just like, where did they get this guy that's just playing with the Pelicans? Like he does not look like a professional player.
It's how I feel about Alex Caruso, who I love as a basketball player. Like you can't look that white and wear that nerdy of a headband. You gotta do something else. It's like, are you trying to look like Elmer Fudd? What are we doing here?
Do y'all remember? I think it was like 5 years ago. They had those like ninja headbands that guys were really into. I know Kelly Oubre was wearing one.
Tobias Harris would wear one. Yeah.
Jimmy Butler did it. I genuinely believe that if you put that shit on Alex Caruso, he'd look like the coolest dude in the league. Honestly, I think he would look like he absolutely fucks, because he jumps out of the gym and that thing just looks really, really great when you're dunking on people. But they were like, oh no, it's a safety concern. Fuck off, NBA. Like, whatever. Guys can box. That's a sport that exists, but I can't wear the right kind of headband. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
I want LeBron to wear a do-rag. That would be so sick.
Oh, like that. It's like that. It's like that
game.
Yeah, with him with the black in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, if LeBron showed up to every game like that meme, I think a lot of people would immediately put him over Jordan.
Yeah,
100%. I think that's what would do it.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. This is your big one. This is your finale. Let's do it.
Oh my God. I mean, the Clippers. How delicious has this start been for the Los Angeles Clippers? I mean, come on, they've lost 6 straight in the James Harden trade. James Harden's airballing.
They only played in 5 of them.
They've lost 6 straight since the James Harden trade. I don't care. I'm just simply stating facts. He's airballing 3-pointers, and then he's getting it back, and then he's getting blocked. I mean, 6 straight. They're 3-7. They're out of the play-in. Yeah, they're out of the play-in entirely. Although I will say, looking in just terms of advanced stats, you probably expect that they're going to turn it around. Also, they have like a ton of talent, so you would expect them. But 14th ranked team according to net rating for a team that's 3-7 is not bad. They're ahead of the Bucks. They're ahead of the Kings. They're ahead of the Heat. They're 12th on offense and they're 14th on defense. I think the biggest issue has been the offense is a lot of my turn, your turn. and they need James Harden and they need Kawhi Leonard to shoot the ball when they catch it from 3-point and they're wide open. Zach Lowe has been all over this, but like they'll get the ball with 15 feet of space and they'll pump fake into a mid range, or they'll pump fake and then just take the ball out and rerun offense. It's like, that's not going to work with the players that you have. So in all seriousness, I do think that they'll actually get it together because there's too much talent. And I do think that it'll just take time to gel. In their next 5, they can easily get it together. They play the Rockets, who, as we just talked about, might not be as easy as we once thought. But then we have the Spurs, and then the Spurs again, Pelicans and Mavericks. We're not talking about the Mavs. I think they're a prime candidate to also regress. So I wouldn't be surprised for the Clippers to go 4-1 or 3-2 in this stretch to kind of turn things around. But as a James Harden hater, I'm going to say that's not going to happen, and they're going to continue to lose, and it's going to be just as memeable as it's been for the first 5 games of James Harden Clippers career. But yeah, my thoughts. Valentinos, we'll start with you. Any Clippers thoughts? Because as a James Harden fan, surely you think that it's not his fault, all right? That
it's got to be the other team's fault. So another thing I heard, like Zach Lowe was saying, Ty Lue said, give me 10 games to kind of figure it out. So like you were saying, they're still middle of the pack and losing. So they're probably, if anything, just going to get better, especially seeing how James Harden has played. It's been miserable. The last week, I think, was the episode when it was the Nets Clippers game. And I watched the second half of that. But I did happen to catch that James Harden pass to Ian Eagle from the sideline. Like literally, Paul George is like, "Where the hell are you throwing?"
And he was wide.
I mean, he put it. We all love Ian Eagle. He put it right in his hands. That's number one commentator in sports.
If you freeze frame it when he caught the ball, he could have made soup and still had time to shoot. It doesn't. Like, I don't understand the hesitance to shoot when you're wide open just because you caught it. Just take a dribble, get yourself in rhythm. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I was because. Of course, and they always bring it back to James Harden on the Nets, and it's like that would be the guy that they're looking for to kind of unlock the Clippers and what we're seeing now. But there were reports that he was unhappy in that role. That's not who he wanted to be. Like, you know, the quotes are him saying, like, we don't need a system. I am the system, like throwing that around. And yeah, I mean, like the offense is kind of staggering a bit because there's the lack of ball movement, which was trying to be the emphasis before they got James Harden. But yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of enjoying it. It's funny to watch the Clippers lose. I feel kind of connected to them because I feel like they're the LA Nets. So part of me would like to see them succeed in some way. But yeah, I mean, Paul George has had a great start, so that's encouraging. He looks really good, and Kawhi hasn't missed any games yet, so that's also good that he's playing. Like, if they're just all playing together and can figure it out, I think that'll be good. It's interesting what they're going to do with Russ, though, and how they're going to fit him in. Like, I feel like staggering Russ with Paul George, like maybe getting Paul George a rest right away and then bringing him on with Russ a little early just because they had that chemistry when they were playing together in OKC. I think that could be something that works out, but we'll see what Lou does with the lineups. I just feel like when you have the 4 of them on the court, you're kind of getting like diminishing returns, especially if people like if Kawhi's not cutting to the hoop as hard as he can and he's just waiting to get the ball to then do his own offense. Like I feel like they could be best suited staggered a bit, but we'll see. The Clippers have looked at my resume and haven't given me a call back for a coordinator. So, you know, what's my opinion?
Give it time. you might get hired by the Bills first. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, to your point, to a lot of the different points, I'm just going to rattle a bunch of stuff off. In terms of staggering the lineups, I agree with you. I think they are trying to do it. I think that there's 2 different problems with this team, particularly with having these 4, all-stars in their starting lineup. PG and Russ want to get out and run. Kawhi and Harden want to play slow and methodical, and they want to work for their shots, and they want to do stuff late in the clock. Those 2 styles, they just don't work together. We've already seen it with PG and Kawhi when it was just the 2 of them. Like, they just, as good as they are, they don't necessarily work great next to each other because the idea of it is a little bit better than what it is when it's implemented. To the point about the net rating, yes, their net rating does look better than 3 and 7 should indicate. I think a lot of that comes from their first 4 games. They have a 2-point loss, a 12-point win, a 16-point win, and a 40-point win over the Spurs. So it is influencing things a little bit. I do think they're going to figure it out. I don't think this is a contender. I've never really believed this is a contender. I don't think they have the big man depth. I don't think they have the defense, despite having Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who are ostensibly like all-world defenders, because I don't think Kawhi Leonard's a good defender anymore, and I don't think he's been a good defender for a couple years. If you look at Kawhi's stats from this season so far, really good game 1, pretty good game 2, really, really good game 3 and 4. And then he's incredible in game 5, which they lost to the Lakers, but he played 42 minutes. He had his highest scoring season, his highest usage, or his highest scoring game, also his highest usage game. And since then, he's regressed significantly. I think he's taken the court, but I think he's looked worse since that Lakers game. And they desperately, badly wanted to win that game. So I understand, like, it was a playoff game. And it was a playoff game 5 games into the season. And I think that was pretty bad for Kawhi. The schedule coming up, like you mentioned, Rockets, Spurs again, Pelicans, Mavericks. They could go 5-0 right here. Also, the way they're looking, they could go 0-5. Like, I just don't know what to expect from this Clippers team. Like I said, I think they're going to figure it out. Give it a little bit of time. But we're not looking at a 50-win team here. We're looking at like a 43, 44-win team that maybe makes a little bit of noise based on the matchup at the beginning of the playoffs, but just not one that I'm looking at and saying, like, these guys are a threat.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all took the under, and I think kind of what we're seeing is exactly why, and that's with Kawhi playing. So yeah,
we didn't all take the under.
Who took the over?
Matt Ferrantino's.
Oh, really? Oh, I guess I thought that was one of our smash plays. I guess I obviously am misremembering.
They'll turn it around. Don't worry.
We all took the under on the Lakers, who look significantly better, despite I think being predicted to win. Oh, I guess more games. But yeah,
aren't the Lakers?
Who do you think has been the difference on the Lakers, Griffin?
Anthony Davis.
What
Christian Wood?
What lineup change though do you think really helped them?
Austin Reeves on the bench.
Cam Reddish. Is that
Cam Reddish in there, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely. I mean, Cam Reddish has been good in 2 of 10 games. I would absolutely not say Cam Reddish has been the major difference maker for the Lakers. He's been their 7th best player, and that's great. Christian Wood won them 3 games. So, I mean, like, we could play this game all day. Shout out Christian Wood, though. He's looked really good this season.
Yeah. Like, between him and Kelly Oubre, some late offseason minimum signings.
Yeah, guys who got signed right at the end of the offseason.
Yeah. Who
have, prior to getting hit by a car, maybe rehab their value. So hopefully Christian Wood is watching both directions before he crosses the street.
Yeah, not getting hit by cars.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the Clippers, Modi? I know that you really wanted to dig in on them.
No, I mean, I think I got out everything that I needed to say. That was very therapeutic. Part of the what's nice about having a podcast is you could just get out. It's basically therapy. It's free therapy. I can just get out whatever takes that I have and then move on.
Yeah, God forbid any of us actually go to therapy. We'll just use this as therapy every Wednesday night at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah, exactly. Free
A
therapy.
therapist can watch and break it down.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day we'll have therapists in the audience who will be able to figure out, why we impart our father issues onto the NBA. Just kidding. You guys have great dads. Anything else we want to touch on before we get out of here? I know we said we weren't going to talk about the Draymond Green suspension, 5 games, nothing unexpected with that.
Zach LaVine trade rumors. I saw that a lot on Twitter. Because I guess
Zach LaVine trade rumors. Yeah. Trade. The 3 teams that were rumored were the Knicks, the Heat, and the Lakers. Is that correct? Or the Knicks, the Sixers, and the Lakers?
I saw the Sixers were interested in LaVine too. Or at least the Bulls might be interested in the Sixers.
Yeah, it's the teams that you would expect who very well might be interested in him, but also at the same time, they're just big markets. So, like, who actually knows if they're really genuinely interested in Zach LaVine?
Every reports out of Philly that they're not interested. For what it's worth, that they're more interested in Caruso than LaVine. I think what it would take to get him, the fact that he's got so many years left on a massive deal, I think the Sixers aren't interested. I would love to have Alex Caruso. I think he'd be perfect, assuming Maxey continues to, not like puts up 50 points, but continues to play as well as he's playing. I think they could use Caruso. Would be awesome for them.
Yeah, Caruso is awesome for every single team in the league.
Yeah. He could fit everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that was
he knows how to run a bench offense. He did it for the Lakers for a little while, so he wouldn't be stepping on Maxi's toes. And he's like the prime, like, I know my role kind of guy. You need me to come in and be a defensive stopper. You need me to lead a bench unit. You need me to just make it easier on your actual star point or shooting guard and like take on the harder assignments. I'll fucking do that shit.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, big Caruso guys, all of us. All right, well, let's get out of here. We'll be back next week, same time, same station, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, every Wednesday night. Like I said at the top of the show, make sure you're liking us on Twitter or following us on Twitter. Excuse me. Make sure you are following us on Instagram, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you may find this show or our social media accounts. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you rate and review, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Ciao.
Stay up.